Hello everyone. I think this is the fifth video of chapter 11 about work, money, and leisure. And we're going to start talking about the second major topic, which is economic consequences of leisure and some of the benefits of leisure too, to economy. We know work is important for economy, that's what we do, but also chapter points out that the leisure is essential to consumption and investment and a contribution to our economy. And that's true. Where we get our money from, work, and we spend that to lead in our leisure. If we don't, the economy is going to go down actually. One of the ways to measure our economy, economic growth, is this thing called a GDP, gross domestic product. It's basically the total value of the goods and services produced in a country. And produced means usually consumed, right? And GDP per capita is basically GDP divided by population, number of people in a country. So in terms of GDP, in 2019, I think the US was still top. China is getting bigger and bigger. It's projected that China will pass the US very soon, especially because of the COVID-19, I think. Japan is number 3, and you go ... and Canada is number 9. In terms of GDP per capita, Luxembourg is the number 1, actually, pretty rich country in that way. Switzerland is the 2nd, and Ireland is the 3rd, last time I checked. It depends on which one actually you see. This one is, I think, from IMF, International Monetary Fund, but depending on you see different organization, the ranking is a little different. And the ... Canada is about 17th in the world. Not too bad, I guess. Now that's economy. And chapter makes a point that leisure, specifically, especially tourism, is being used as an economic development strategy. And that's true. That's true, right? Canada, we get a lot of tourism from the, especially western part of Canada. We have the Rocky Mountain. A lot of people come from Asia, Europe, different parts of the world to come here, and they use the money. They consume stuff, right? Other small countries actually do that too. For example, then here's the information statistics about the size of the total tourism industry relative to GDP. When I said total, that means basically tourism is a very fuzzy industry in a way. Okay, what's the boundary of tourism, right? Transportation, accommodation, restaurants, retail, souvenir shop. It's the maximum. I think these people, like for example, this is coming from Travel and Tourism Industry Organization. So they're going to try to include pretty much everything. So that's a bit exaggerated. But anyway, Canada, arguably, had a 6.7% or about a $100 billion US dollar, of our GDP from tourism industry, total tourism industry. Okay. That's quite a bit, 6.3. I listed Japan, it's pretty similar number or proportion, like 7.5%. Of course, the absolute number is bigger because we have a bigger GDP. But there are many other countries and region which uses tourism more. Like for example, Macau, over 57%. That's quite a bit, right? Cambodia, 28%. It makes sense, right? They've got some World Heritage sites, nice culture, nice nature, nice food. Now the issue is though, when you're dependent on a tourism so much as an economic development tool, what's going to happen when things like COVID happen? Well, that's another question. However, the statistics supports the point that chapter was making. Now, why economy? Why do we care about economy? What's the wealth of the economic development for, really? What's the point of that? And there's so many philosophers and economists and sociologists who debated this issue. And for one of those people, John Keynes, one of the world's most famous economists in history, he viewed wealth is for leisure. Yeah. He predicted by 2030, and that's about 10 years from now, developed countries' economies will be wealthy enough that the leisure, not work, will characterize nations' lifestyles. And of course, Canada is part of it. Now, is it gonna be true? Right? That's the question. In 9 years or so, people go like, Canada. Canada is like, there's that leisure, there's that, there's this, there's that, right? Well, we're gonna talk about that. Talk about the Canadian culture and society in leisure-based perspective. In our field, our prediction is that, well, Keynes was right about a lot of things, capital growth, technological advancement, but probably he was wrong about achieving what is called a leisure society in which leisure becomes the dominant, thing. Still, it's going to be work dominated in 2013. So, question is, what happened? Ready? I love this picture. Kid goes like, what happened? Right? Where did our leisure society go? We want this leisure society. Why it's not happening? Maybe because one of the explanation is this Veblen. Remember that guy? He talked about conspicuous leisure in the medieval Europe time, right? And the reason why, well, he wasn't living in a medieval Europe, right? He's historically studied in medieval Europe, conspicuous leisure, so that he can explain a phenomenon, it was happening in his time, which is like the turn of the 20th century or so, right? Conspicuous consumption. That was a phenomenon he was observing. The people spend lavishly money on visible goods, something that's, really showing off to prove that they were prosperous financially and, in many other ways, successful. The catch here, like a conspicuous leisure here is a status symbol. The point of that is to prove that they were successful, right, to other people. Now, from this perspective, conspicuous consumption, people need to buy more expensive things to distinguish themselves as the society's, the quality of living, standard of living goes up. Maybe having a smartphone did distinguish you 15 years ago, right? Not today, not today. If you have a fancy iPhone 12 newest, that may distinguish you, right? You have to spend more money, buy more expensive stuff to distinguish as we go. So we have to earn more. We have to keep working harder to get the more money, and that's maybe why we are working so much. We don't have a leisure society yet. Think about the brand, right? Like, for example, well, Apple, this is not Apple, but Apple is a brand too. But like something like Louis Vuitton, bag. It's a visible, like a literally conspicuous consumption definition, lavishly on, spending lavishly on visible goods. Right? Bag, there's Louis Vuitton, Louis Vuitton, Louis Vuitton, Louis Vuitton. There's that logo speaks to you, the visible, that I have this much money, right? But hey, if you're in a 30, 40, maybe Louis Vuitton doesn't really distinguish you. You gotta go even fancier one, I don't know, Balenciaga, or those like fancier, even like, if you buy a bag from there and it's like $20,000 easy, pop. There's no limit. We produce more expensive stuff. You gotta keep playing this game if you are in part of this conspicuous consumption. Do we actually do this? Charles and colleagues, 2017, they tested and they found, yeah, but only among a particular group of wealthy people living near poorer, not necessarily poor people, right? Poorer people engaged in a conspicuous consumption more. Because it makes sense, right? Because they have their incentive to show off. Because they know that the people around them are poorer than them, that they cannot buy, for example, Louis Vuitton. Then wealthy people living around that are rich people, like equally rich. Well, what's the point of doing that? You have a Louis Vuitton, everybody can buy Louis Vuitton in your neighborhood. They don't do that. Now, the key question is, though, what's going to happen and what is happening right now with the social media influencers, rich people? They can show off. They can do conspicuous consumption literally anywhere. You're not physically tied to people you have to show off to, right? You can show off to literally everyone, anyone on the social media. So does that mean that it's encouraging our conspicuous consumption for the money for the people who have? Right? Taking video, taking photo, go to fancy place, take a picture, boom. Is it helping conspicuous consumption? Social media? Maybe. What about the relationship between leisure and capitalism, which is one of the major principles for many economies in the world right now? Question here is that, does leisure drive, like impact, facilitate capitalism? Well, what is capitalism? Capitalism is the principle of private ownership of the means of production and distribution of goods and services, and Canada's economy is partly based on a capitalism. Yes, not maybe so much as US, but it is. And this goods and services, a lot of it is leisure, right? It's maybe Lululemon pants, maybe. Something like this, no space, I guess, like, those things could be related to leisure. Now, Karl Marx, who is economist, sociologist, philosopher, right, who are, is considered to be the founder of the socialism. He criticized, of course, capitalism, and he said, in capitalist society, leisure time for privileged class, people who are rich, people who have the capital, called a capitalist, is produced and sustained by converting the whole lifetime of the masses, that everybody else in the society, into labor. Isn't that scary? And that's exactly what we discussed. What basically, if you remember the first humanity chapter, we talked about the novel called Momo by Michael Ende, and exchanging time with the banker into money. That's exactly what this is, isn't it? There, in a society, there are limited a few people who have a lot of resources, and they don't really have to work. They have to make other people work for them. The money goes to them. Either way, quite a bit of it. And the rest of us are working in this system so that it will sustain, arguably, that few people who help. Now, under capitalism, and that's not just the Karl Marx. I mean, obviously, Karl Marx, believed in a socialism. So, I mean, he didn't like. I'm pretty sure. I'm assuming. I didn't have a chat with the Karl Marx, but I'm assuming he didn't like capitalism. But this kind of criticism is not uncommon. It's coming from every direction, right? Other person said, under capitalism, leisure is not right. It's a reward to be earned. You got to earn it by working, and we can use it as a punishment by taking it out. Maybe it looks like this. Of course, there's the US here. God, over the past 4 years, this sure looks like this, but maybe it applies to many other countries. Maybe it applies to Canada. I don't know where you are now. Maybe it applies to your society, your economy as well. The other major factor that we have to discuss when we talk about the relationship between leisure and economy is this consumerism. And that's different from capitalism, and that's different from consumption. So you got to be careful, right? Consumerism is a social and economic order, ideal and value system, belief system that encourages the purchase of goods and services in ever greater amounts, faster and faster, more and more, right? And leisure is a big part of that. I mean, global expenditure on a sports foot gear. have one of those shoes, Under Armour, right? Avionics badminton shoes, $80 billion per year. Oh my God, $80 billion. You guys don't call it a sneakers, right? You call it a kicks, whatever, you know, that thing. Some people don't even wear, you know, those like fancy sneakers. They just collect them. Anyway, leisure is one of those, part of it. In the United States, for example, about 10% of personal consumption was for leisure in 2017. So really, it's part of consumption, but as a system, value system, we encourage people's consumption on leisure more and more, because that's the area we can increase most in terms of consumption. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Now we got to ask this question. How does this leisure-based, leisure-related consumerism, you know, encouraging and pushing us to buy more and more and faster, how did that happen? How is this happening? One of the major factors we have to attend to is media, including traditional media. There's like pop-up signage, right? TV commercial, tell you what to buy, right? What to do with your money. For example, McDonald's commercial, the catchy slogan, I'm loving it. Who is to say, you know, I'm loving it? You don't know me, like, you know, I don't love it. Well, and with this catchy phrase, with this nice picture of the burger visual picture, it never looks like this, right? You know that. It never actually looks like this. When you open up that package, it looks more, you know, it's just like not good. It's not that fresh and crispy and fluffy and juicy. But anyway, it pushes us to buy more. Or more recently, social media. You know, you saw on your Instagram that your friend went to this beach with the pink flamingo. You got to go. Well, you don't really have to go. Now, the catch is, with this media, what they try to do is they make what we want. Like, you want to go to the beach with the pink flamingo. Yes, and you want to. Yeah, you want to eat the burger, maybe. But that turned into you need to. Want into need. You need to eat the burger, the quarter nice, this new pounder, you know, quarter pounder or third pounder or whatever that may be. You gotta eat it. You gotta go to that. You gotta go see that pink flamingo. You gotta take that selfie. No, you don't. No, you don't have to. But the media, with their surrounding social and traditional media, make us feel that way. Makes us feel that we need to. The other important concept, the phenomenon that really supports this leisure consumption or consumerism, relationship, is called a hurried leisure class. And it's a little tricky, but it's very interesting, important concept. I want you to understand that. So from this perspective, consumption takes time, of course, right? You get a drink, you finish up with one bottle of water, you buy it, finish it. You spend quite a bit of time. With increased levels of products and service, you can make a bottle of water faster, right? Because of the technological advancement and everything. Now, time for consumption has to speed up because you can make more water. You can make more bottles of water. You gotta drink more and more. The people, the consumers, gotta drink more and faster, so that you can produce more. Right, the consumption, the balance between consumption and production, the need and supply, demand and supply. Now, as a society, again, we produce more and more products and more services for the same amount of time, so faster and faster due to technological advancements. And yet, now that's the catch. The time is scarce. The time is specifically for time for consumption. Doesn't really change, you know? It's not like, hey, here's an extra 2 hours, you can drink water. No, it's not like that, right? The 24 hours, that's a given. So, but yet still, we must somehow speed up our consumption so that production can go up more. That's what the companies and economies and countries want, typically, so that the economy keep growing. The key question is this: how can we speed up our consumption? And one strategy on the left side of the picture is just producing and marketing more expensive stuff per unit. Cell phone, right? Each cell phone becomes more and more expensive somehow. Although not necessarily technologically, maybe the ingredients, the parts are getting cheaper, make it cheaper with the less human labor, so that maybe it actually doesn't cost as much, but somehow it's getting more expensive. iPhone 12 just came out, I guess. More expensive probably than iPhone 11. I didn't actually take a look at that. So please tell me, somebody tell me if I'm wrong. But interestingly, this picture really interested me. iPhone 12, okay, that's good. More expensive, as presumably, than 11. And I think this is the US dollar. And it's from, so, if you want to get a better one, it's more expensive, usually, 256 gigabyte is way more expensive. Now, Pro. And I was like, what do you mean by, cell phone Pro? What kind of extra function? I didn't study it, right? And it's as if you need to put more professional advanced features in it so that they can charge us more per cell phone, which probably we will spend the same amount of hours, like time, right? Consumption time. Let's say you change them every 3-4 years, right? That's not changed. But if you can price it the same time more and more, and that consumption is actually, speeding up. And there's not just that Pro Max somehow, I don't know, it's a fancier, right? So that's, do we really need it? I mean, I bought once upon a time MacBook Pro. And I was told by multiple people that, Shin, you don't really need a MacBook Pro. Like, you don't do the video editing, you don't do all that kind of stuff, although I may do right now. And I was like, yeah, I want a MacBook Pro, right? But that's exactly it. You put the extra feature to make that, unit price more expensive. The other one is the right side picture, for example, represented by a right side picture. More products and services consumed within the one activity. For example, camping. You can just take a bus and make it really camping cheap. You can just have our backpack and camp really cheap and nice. Or you can buy a RV, recreation vehicle, right, or camper. And to pull that, you can get a nice truck, right? And you can buy some chairs, and you can buy some satellite TV, and you can buy some, for portable, movable grill where you can barbecue. You can buy a new fancy tent, a big tent with nice gears, and you can buy so much. You can use so many services too. You can put all that consumption into one activity so that your consumption is speeding up. You're spending the same amount of hours probably, weekend to the Jasper, 2 days, 48 hours, right? But there's so much money involved in it, and that's how they get you in a way. This is how this Harry the leisure class works. In this consumerist society and value system, we have to speed up consumption, and that's leisure is a primary area. I mean, iPhone, the camping, classic example, right? There. A little scary. Now I'm going to stop talking about this, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye now.